Hi everyone, how is it going? Jessie Medina here. I'm super excited to be here today with you. I want to share something. Dun, 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 dun. So if you remember, or if you haven't seen it, you can go find it, but I took a microbiome test. And I took this test because I'm reading a book about biohacking, and he recommended to try this, okay, to try this test. Doesn't matter what brand you use. Again, I'm not promoting a specific brand. I personally use one called Viome, and I think it's super cool because you get to like poop in this little tube. Well, you don't poop in the tube. If you want to hear more about the process, you can go and watch the other video. But right now, I want to talk about the results because they're in. Yay! Okay, so let me tell you something. When I got the results, I was kind of shocked because in these results, there are certain things that people think and we know actually for a fact that they're healthy, but it doesn't mean that they're healthy for everyone or that they're the best for everyone. So I got a couple things that I was really surprised that I'm not supposed to eat. So basically this test shares with you your bacteria, the bacteria and your microbiome and what's in there, and if it's healthy and if it's balanced, and the foods that help your gut and the ones that don't help your gut, the ones that interact. So a lot of sicknesses, a lot of diseases come from having an unhealthy gut. A lot of things that start here, even acne sometimes. So like if you're not healthy in your gut, it's gonna affect your body. And so for me, it was affecting my energy. I felt like I sometimes would lose my energy, and I'm young, I'm fit. Like I knew I was sleeping, like everything else was fine. I don't get too stressed. Like I'm a pretty positive person. So like for me, I knew that it had to do with my gut. So anyway, so I got the results, and I love it because they just send you an email saying your results are in, and then you just open up the app, and then the results are right there. And this is why I think that no diet fits all diet. So basically, like, you have to find what's good for you, what works for your body, because like I said, some of the foods that I'm not supposed to eat are foods that are actually healthy. They are healthy foods, but my body, for whatever reason, doesn't love that, or it interacts with my gut bacteria in a weird way. So the foods that they said not to eat are foods that they said that they were causing inflammation, and they were causing a lot of fermentation in my body, in my gut. And so obviously that affects your digestion and everything else. So the ones, are you ready? Dun, 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 dun. You ready for this? Okay, so the number one food that was on there, before I get there, let me tell you, I actually had noticed that every time I ate beets, I would like go number one and number two, like red. Like I understand food colors come out in your, everything, in the toilet, but it would be like red, as if like you're looking at a beet. Okay, so I was kind of like, that's weird. And then I asked people, and then my mom and like my sisters and my fiance were like, no, we don't get that. So I noticed that for whatever reason, I Googled it, and it was saying like, oh, that means that you're not absorbing it or whatever. And I was like, that's really interesting. And I love beets. And so I knew that there were certain things like that were funky for my body. And when I took the test, the number one thing that it said like that wasn't good for me to consume was beets. It literally said that. And I was like, and guess what? That week I had literally been eating beets the entire week. But this is not when I took the test. This is like weeks later when I got the results, okay? When I got the results, which is like literally last week, it said like no eating beets, and I had been eating beets the entire week because I bought some beets and I was like cooking them up. So anyway, so that's not to say that you can't eat beets. That's not to say that beets are not healthy or that they're bad foods. It's just for me. And this is why I want to share that you have to find what works for you, and you have to really just like find out about your body and also listen to your body. And when people tell you need to eat this way or that way, you need to follow that diet, like you have to do what's right for you. And sometimes even being overweight, it's not about like, oh, because you like are lazy or like you eat a lot of food. Like sometimes we're eating foods that are actually affecting our metabolism, our immune system, our energy levels, etc., etc. So sometimes people think someone is lazy and they're actually just not eating the right foods, or we think someone is overweight because they overeat, and maybe it's not that, it's their gut bacteria. Like, you can literally be overweight because of your gut bacteria. So you have to look into these things and educate yourselves. And I had to educate myself too, and I'm still learning. Like, there were a lot of things about the results that I don't know exactly what it means. Like, they told me specifically, like, all the names of the bacteria that's in my gut, that I was like, okay, I don't know what these are. But that's okay, because, you know, they do give you a plan, and you can even print it out in a PDF form, and you can have it by your fridge or whatever. But I just use it in my app. I don't print ever unless it's like absolutely necessary, because I think that's wasteful. But that's a different story. But I have it in my phone app, and I love it, and I record with my phone, so I wish I could like show it to you, but I can't. But I will tell you. So basically, it said no beets. It said tomatoes as well, which was really surprising to me. But here's the thing. Here's the tricky part about tomatoes. So when I was little, my grandma used to always peel the tomatoes, right? And then I grew up and I forgot about that. And I learned how to cook from my grandma, but I kind of forgot about that. You know, I don't peel my tomatoes. Well, when I got the results about tomatoes, I was really surprised. I was like, what? I can't eat tomatoes? That's so weird. So then I Googled it, and then I saw another video, somebody talking, and it was saying, like, people that have, you know, some sort of intolerance to tomatoes, or tomatoes are kind of funky for you or your gut, usually if you peel them, you would be okay. Like, you will be fine. And then I just remember my grandma, and I was like, that's really interesting, because she used to peel her tomatoes. And then it turns out, like, a lot of people, especially back in the day, peel their tomatoes. So I guess this is something that we're not doing now. But I'm going to start practicing that, because I do like tomatoes. I don't eat them every day, but if I do want to eat them, I'm just going to peel them from now on. So anyway, so then, you know, I had a few other things, like coffee was in there, and this is where, like, listening to your body is super important, because every time I would drink coffee, and I've told people this is why I mostly drink tea, but sometimes I'll drink coffee because I like the smell, I like the flavor, like, I like the idea of, like, waking up and drinking a cup of coffee, you know, like, so I was enamored by the idea of it, and then I would drink it. Not recently, I was being better about it, but, like, before I would drink it, and then I would feel super funky, and I'd have to run to the bathroom, and it just didn't sit well with me. Well, sure enough, coffee was in my list of things not to consume, like, at all. Like, these are the things that I'm not supposed to consume. So then it had a few other things that didn't really stand out, maybe because I don't consume them a lot as it is. But one other thing that I was super surprised about, and that I do consume, is celery. So I have green juice all the time, because my fiance is obsessed with making green juice every morning. So we literally put celery in almost every juice that he makes. And so I was consuming celery, and I put it as something that I shouldn't consume, and that was really interesting to me and surprising. But I'm not necessarily gonna miss it. I like it, but it's not like the end of the world. And there were a few other things. And then they give you a list of things that are okay, like you can eat them, but in moderation. That's what it says, moderation, right? Like, these are things that I shouldn't be eating, like, multiple times a day. And, you know, like, eggs were there, and, like, I can't even remember that. This was, like, almost like, duh, like, you know, I'm not gonna eat 10 eggs anyway. Like, there were things like that where it's like, okay, like, just have 1 cup of this, or like half a cup of that, and it's kind of like the portions that I eat anyway, so it wasn't like a big deal. But then I do remember the list of things that I need to eat, and this is why, one of the main reasons I wanted to share this video is because my entire existence got validated, because this is the best part. I get to eat something that I've always said that is really good for me, and I've always said that I grew up eating it, and I've always said that I felt really good eating it. And then when I changed my diet, again, I've never done like diets, like the, you know, specific diets, but when I changed like my eating habits and like, you know, my trainers, so I used to have trainers, every trainer that I had, like workout trainers, they would be like, no, you can't eat this, you can't eat this, you know, and then they would always tell me how to eat and to snack, to eat like 5 times a day. All these things made me gain weight. Like, the first time in my entire life, I was like a super skinny. I could never gain weight even if I tried. Like, I was literally trying to gain weight, but I couldn't. But I had these, you know, grew up eating a certain way. Then, fast forward, I'm in the US, I'm an adult, and I changed my diet because they told me to. They were like, oh, you need to eat this way and that way. You need to eat 5 times a day, like 3 meals and snacks in between and this and that. Well, sure enough, I started gaining weight for one. But two, and most importantly, this is where like kind of like my system changed. My entire, kind of like my metabolism changed. I feel like before I always had so much energy, and then I became like this person that sometimes struggled with energy. I felt like, my bathroom habits changed, all these things like started changing, but it happens so like gradually that you don't notice until like 2 years in, and you're like, oh dang, like what happened to me? Like I gained all this weight. Not that there's anything wrong with my weight right now, but I did go up in like sizes, and like I did notice my body changing, but most importantly it was bothering me because of the energy levels and the focus. I feel like I would lose a lot of focus. Well, anyway, so then here's my validation. I kept telling people, and even my trainers, like, no, this has been really good for me, and they wouldn't listen, and they made me stop, and then I stopped. And guess what? According to this test, the number one thing that my body likes and that I can eat, and that is a superfood for me, okay? Not only, like, they classify it as a superfood for me. Again, this doesn't apply to everyone, but for me is, you ready for it? I wish I had drums, like a drum roll. Steak. It said, literally said, like you don't understand. I'm from Argentina. Like we are obsessed with steak. We eat a steak all the time. I grew up eating steak. Steak was in almost like you eat a steak at least 3 times a week, at least. But you always find it in your meals, whether you're having spaghetti with like, chunks of steak, beef, or you're having like, steak with like eggs in the morning. You're having like something. Well, not really in the morning. It's more like lunchtime, really. But okay, that's not the point. The point is that we eat a lot of steak, and I grew up with that, and I always felt healthy. I always felt energetic. I was always super lean, super lean, So I always would tell the trainers, like, this works for me. This is good for me. And then they'd be like, no, like you have to eat this way and that way, and like eat more rice and quinoa and like these things. And I honestly didn't feel like some of these things were good for me, like I like, again, my body started changing, but it wasn't until it got super bad, like now, like years later, that I realized like, wow, all these changes made me change. So then okay, so steak was there, so I feel really validated, and this is the point that I wanted to make, that you have to listen to your body. You just have to listen to your body and how it feels after you eat certain foods and how you feel over time. And so that was great. That was a great validation. It also had green tea, which I love. When I stopped drinking coffee, I started drinking a lot more green tea, and my mom drinks a lot of black tea, and she's like super lean, super healthy. Like she doesn't even work out, and she has like super great like immune system. Every time she's done tests, like they're like, oh, your levels are great, your sugar levels and like your cholesterol levels, like everything is so good. Like, what are you doing? Like, even doctors will be like, what are you doing? And it's like, I don't know, I just have like an average life. But I somehow think that it's related to her tea drinking, because that's the only thing that stands out about her for me when I look at her and her diet. Like, she doesn't eat anything special. She doesn't really eat healthy per se. But the only thing that she does more than the average person is she drinks a lot of tea. Like, she literally drinks at least like 8 cups of tea a day. She also drinks water, but she drinks tea. So anyway, so drinking green tea and even black tea, I love drinking tea. Well, recommended tea for me. It recommended that, superfoods. It said, this is the other one that it said, I'm like, I knew it because I always eat these. It's the buckwheat noodles. So I eat a lot of buckwheat noodles, and it was saying that I need to eat more of that instead of like, say, flour or whatever. So like I love buckwheat noodles. I feel super good when I eat them. Like, I actually don't feel anything, which is a good sign, right? Like, you eat them and you still feel great. You still feel energetic. Like, it didn't affect you. Didn't make you lose energy. Didn't make your blood sugars drop. Oh, and going back to this steak, because it kind of tells you, like, the why. Like, with the tomatoes and stuff, it told me it caused me inflammation and all that. Well, for the steak, it says that for my sugar levels and, like, for me, it helped regulate my blood sugar, which is super interesting that, and it helped me understand that this is pretty accurate, because obviously they didn't know this, but I have really low blood pressure. Like I always have low blood pressure, which is always why I feel like kind of like fainty and like kind of like lightheaded. And I just have it. It just doesn't change. And then you go to the doctor and they're like, well, that's not a bad thing. It would be bad if you have high blood pressure. But it is kind of bad in the sense that you feel like kind of weak. And so it was really good to see that the reason why for me it's good to eat a steak, even though for other people I don't recommend it because it can spike your, you know, your blood pressure. For me, because I have it low, it would make sense that I would have to eat something that helps me with those levels. But that's not sugar, because sugar is super bad for you, and sugar does only causes problems. And honestly, I never really care for sugar anyway. And so it makes sense that my body would get that from steak. So obviously it says like, it says that it has to be pasture raised and all that, which I do buy that, organic, all that, because I do care about that. I don't eat mindlessly. I became really aware of eating, you know, mindfully, and like sourcing where you source your things. I like buying from local farmers, from local businesses, because I think that matters. I cannot stand watching videos of animals being tortured or being caged. I cannot. If you watch anything like that, you'll know why. And so I really care about, you know, buying from farms that I know that animals are, you know, just running around and doing their thing, and that we're not abusing animals. And so for me, that was like the only reason that I ever thought if I ever go vegan, it's going to be because of the animals, not because of, you know, other things, because I knew that honestly a vegan diet might not be a best diet for me. So then one of the foods that I couldn't eat is like this ingredient that I can't pronounce or remember, but it's an ingredient found in most fake milks, like in the almond milk and the coconut milk. All those milks have that ingredient. So I was like, oh yeah, no wonder I can't be vegan, right? Like all these like vegan foods substitute, you know, with this ingredient that's actually not good for my body, which is why I feel funky when I eat those things. So I'm sharing this because what I want to say is most people would say, heck no, you can't eat steak, or heck no, like vegetarian diet is the healthiest diet, or like this other diet is the best diet. But like seriously, like everybody's so different, and this is why we cannot impose our beliefs on other people. We cannot impose our ways on other people, and we can never feel bad, or we can never feel like, oh, I want to look like her, what is she eating, I'm going to eat that, because we don't know. Each body is different, so we have to listen to our body. We have to take these tests. You can take them from a doctor. You could try one of these, you know, online packages, whatever. Get it delivered to your home. I get the results within like 2 weeks, and I got it right on my phone, and it was really convenient. And I actually, again, got validated that the things that I kind of knew all along, there were some things that surprised me, like the beets and all that. But if I really look back after I saw them, I'm like, well, my body was telling me that because of the way that when I went to the bathroom, the way that it looked, you know, the way that I feel when I eat this or that. So your body does communicate with you, and sometimes when we ignore it for long enough, that's when the diseases start popping up, and the bad things start happening. Like for me, like I didn't have acne as a kid, as a teenager, and then as an adult I got acne, and it was all these changes in my diet that I did thinking that it was healthy, and these trainers were making me eat these things that actually weren't healthy for me. My body doesn't love rice, you know, like I eat it like in sushi, but if you think about it, it's like such a small quantity, you know, but I've never been the kind of person to eat a bowl of rice, you know. And I guess I just always instinctively knew, but sometimes we don't know, especially if we're not in tune, or we've been eating a certain way for so long that we are almost used to it. Like you almost think that you just get lightheaded after eating because that's just normal. That's your new normal because it's been happening for so long that you almost don't even think about it now, right? And that's what would happen to me. I would eat certain things and I would like randomly like lose energy like right away on the spot, and then over time I got used to that feeling, and I kind of forgot that you can eat and not feel lightheaded. And so anyway, so then I got super excited. So it said steak, it said green tea, it said, you know, a lot of like other fruits and veggies, of course, and it said also that one of the top ones that I'm supposed to consume is beef broth, you know, so like from bones of cows, and I love cows. Didn't recommend anything pork, which is great because I don't eat pork. So it's almost like I instinctively knew not to eat those things. But but yeah, so like it said beef broth, and I love beef broth. I mean, like I eat it in pho, but even like at home, I'll cook. You know, I'll throw some bones in there, make soup. So I love eating that stuff. In Argentina, we do that too. We have a soup that's called puchero, that like you throw bones in there and beef chunks and like a ton of veggies and like salt, and that's literally it. You know, and like think about how concentrated all those nutrients in there are, because they're boiling in that broth for like at least an hour, you know. So so it was really comforting, and at the same time it was it just made me really want to share this, you know, because we give ourselves a hard time, and I had friends that get frustrated, like, oh, I've tried this diet and that diet and it doesn't work, and this is why it doesn't work. Because guess what, if I had told anyone, and I did, that steak was good for me and that it made me feel good, they wouldn't believe me. And so, you know, you had to take this test, or you have to do something to find out what's good for you, what diet works for you. Of course, veggies is always good, right? Like, everybody can tell you that veggies are always healthy. But guess what, I had that I shouldn't eat tomatoes, bell peppers, and beets, and I love those things, and they are healthy generally speaking, but yet they're not great for my gut. So they told me not to eat those things for the next 45 days. And then after that, they're going to give me like another set of, like, they almost want me to reset. And then they're going to give me another set of things. I don't know what it's going to be. Might be very similar. I don't know. But I think they wanted me to reset my gut. And so, yeah, so this is really interesting. And I remember watching, one time I watched gosh, I was like, this video is going to be short. And I just noticed that it's like 21 minutes already. Shoot. Okay. One time, last thing, I watched this video about twin sisters. And they were twins. Everything else was the same, but one was overweight, one wasn't. And then they checked their gut bacteria, and sure enough, everything else was the same, but their gut bacteria wasn't the same. It was different. So what they did is they transferred some of the stool, like some of the bacteria. I don't know how they do it. Maybe it was the stool wasn't in there, but somehow they transfer the cultures from the skinny sister to the overweight sister and put it in her gut, and she literally just started losing weight. She didn't change anything else. Like, she didn't change her diet, her lifestyle, nothing. Just from changing the gut in her not the gut in her bacteria, the bacteria in her gut, she started losing weight. So sometimes, again, and it's not just about losing weight. It can be many things about your health, many things about your body. So you have to be conscious, and you have to like get to know your body. And even if it is veggies, yes, we have to eat like at least 8 cups of veggie a day, but there might be some veggies that interact better with your gut than others. So find out what those are. Like for me, one of my top superfoods that along with steak, it was kale. And I'm not surprised, because whenever I crave salad, I crave kale. And guess what? Spinach was in like my danger zone foods. And spinach is super healthy, but I don't crave spinach. I do crave kale. And so that's really interesting that that's one of my superfoods. And I'm not surprised that kale is a superfood for everyone, but again, you'll never know. So you have to, you have to look into these things and be mindful of that, and not give yourself a hard time. Like if you're struggling with your weight, your energy levels, your focus, anything like that, you might want to consider looking into your gut health. So that's what I wanted to share with you. Again, the name of the test that I took personally, the test itself is called microbiome test. Microbiome is the cultures are in your gut, but the brand that I use is called Viome. So Viome. This is not sponsored. I don't know the brand. I've never interacted with them. I just bought the first kit that I found when I went to these labs in LA that sell things like that. So anyway, so wanted to recommend that you try something like that, and that you look into it. Let me know if it was helpful, or if you have any other questions, let me know in the comments, and I'll talk to you soon. That's us.